Welcome back to the Joke Zero podcast, where we are talking about all things indie filmmaking, and we are highlighting Joke Zero's first ever feature film called Plan B, which is out now on Amazon, on Apple, on Fandango, wherever you like to rent or buy movies. And obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast, we've been talking to some of the people in front of the camera, some behind the camera. And today, we are blessed with a great episode today. She is an amazing actress. She is, you know her from, her 9 seasons on a show called The Office. But in this movie, she plays Jane Brantley, our book publisher. We've got Kate Flannery on the podcast. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the big intro.
I was excited you were on. It's just like 3 of us from Philly just hanging out, we've got the South Jersey Philly group today. It's really fun.
I have a Wawa card in my bag. I'm like,
you have a Wawa card, like a
tip card. That way, if I don't have any cash, I can just go to Wawa and still enjoy myself.
Absolutely. In the pandemic, I posted about them and they sent me merch, and I took all these photos like I was like the queen of Wawa. I was like, this is it. My life's calling.
I'm so jealous. I love Wawa.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Obviously, we're talking about Plan B, which you're amazing in. It's very funny.
Thank you. It's a fun process. And it was great to get to shoot in the Philadelphia area. On the Jersey side, because I'm a Jersey girl too. I'm from Philadelphia, but I spent a lot of time in South Jersey. My family has a house down the shore. That's what we were just talking about.
Does your accent ever come out? I feel like I don't hear it.
When I'm exhausted, yeah.
Last week, I was with my family for too long, and my boyfriend called out that I said water. He's like, you just said water. How'd you say it? I was like, no, I didn't. I don't say it that way. No, I didn't. So I want to talk to you about growing up in Philadelphia. How did you get started in this industry? Did you always want to be an actress?
I did. I actually wanted to be a kid actor, and my parents weren't very cooperative. Thank God, because I love kid actors. I'm really grateful that I had a longer trajectory. So yeah, I actually worked I think my first gig, I was like 15. I sang in a club with like a bunch of comedians, but I was like singing, but I was telling jokes in between, which I hadn't planned. It just sort of happened.
Full cabaret act.
Totally, I did. I kind of, yeah. And then I was like, then I got, yeah. It was a phase, but it was fun. And then I as an adult, I went to, but as a kid, I was like, I wanted to do it. And one of the people in that show ended up being a writer on Sex and the City. She was a Judy Toll. Like it was, there was a few people that were in that show that were like later, I'm like, oh my God, life is so crazy. You never know how you're going to reconnect with people. And then when I was a senior in high school, I worked at a theater. I was in an actual show for like 3 months, which was really fun. And, it kind of scratched that itch because I got to leave after 4th period on a Wednesday because I had a matinee.
That's the child actor. You were like, I'm already working, guys. I don't need school. I love that. Did you study acting, and like, did you go?
Yeah, I went to the University of the Arts. I went to Shenandoah University for 2 years in Virginia, and then I went to the University of the Arts. And yeah, I had a great experience. And then when I graduated from college, my favorite aunt sent me a ticket to check out Second City, and it totally changed my life. I got to stay with her. It was awesome. It was I feel like every important comedy person I met during that time, and it made it so much easier to move to New York afterwards, and then LA because I already had this Chicago connections and real friendships. And yeah, there's still some of my strongest friendships are from my Second City days.
So you did Philly to Chicago to New York to LA.
Yes. My New York was shorter than, yes. It was short, and then LA, New York, LA, New York. So yeah, because I ended up doing a play in LA that went back to New York off Broadway. Those chapters in other cities, it's great, especially if you have a specific goal and you feel like you can meet it. It's great.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure you have friends who are in LA that you met in Chicago or in New York at those times.
Yep, absolutely. Which is just, I mean, obviously we didn't realize when we were in Chicago that we were sort of having a golden era. I was there during, like Rachel Dratch was there, Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert, Neve Dallas, Amy Sedaris. I mean, there's so many funny people that were there when we were there. And, Andy Richter was in one of my first improv classes, and we've known each other ever since. So, life is just so interesting. And if you're not a douchebag, you can actually stay connected to those people.
I love it. So when I got to know, I mean, I think the people on this podcast also have to ask about The Office. When did that come into your life, and what was that process like when you booked it?
Well, I was doing a comedy act for a few years that I created with a guy named Scott Robinson called The Lampshades. We're like a dying lounge act. So I was doing The Lampshades every week. I was still waiting tables. I was getting a few guest star jobs. I'd done like Bernie Mac, and I was on a show briefly called Boomtown, and I was recurring. But like the second episode, they announced that the show was ending early, and then I just auditioned for The Office. I had the Lampshades were at the Aspen Comedy Festival, the HBO Comedy Festival, right a few months before that, and Mindy Kaling was actually doing her two-person show there. Ben and Matt and Greg Daniels, our boss on The Office, had hired her from that. I was there. He did not meet me then. We didn't meet till later, but yeah, I actually auditioned for the pilot, didn't get it. I ended up replacing somebody for the pilot. So I initially auditioned for the part of Jan, and clearly they went a different way. So yeah,
Oh my God. Wait, and then you didn't book it and then they were like actually just kidding.
it was a different part. The casting director was like, "I think you're right for this show. I don't know if this is your part, but I think you're right for this show." And yeah, so they actually asked us to bring actual paperwork the first season. They wanted us to be actually working. So I was doing like my taxes and stuff.
While you were on set.
Yes, writing, doing some writing. Yeah, it was actually kind of awesome because they wanted the cameras to be able to improvise as well. So they caught you had to be already working. It's not like you started working realizing like that there was a camera on you. It was a very fun process, and it was like very much an ensemble. You know, it's like you want to bring, even if you're not talking, you want to bring as much of this character as you can. And I just loved it. So got to make all decisions about, kind of like just the physical decisions about who Meredith was. Obviously, the writing came from our amazing writers.
That's so cool. And also hilarious that you were doing your taxes on set. Like by the end of 9 seasons, were you like, hey, who needs their taxes done? Like, I've got it. I've got this now.
After the first season, our computers worked. So we were like, I was like, and I got an accountant. So it was fun.
That's great. Did you, with like, you and Steve Carell had already worked together at Second City? Was it fun to like,
Technically, he was in a different cast when I was at Second City. We were there at the same time, and we did a show that we're like Brady Bunch. I was doing like commercials, and he was the first Greg. So I was doing like live commercials. Like we were among our worlds. But yeah. So, but it was great to see someone I knew. I also knew Angela Kinsey before because when I moved back to LA in like 2000, we were in an all chick improv group called Bitch Planet.
that's so fun. When you guys were starting this show and working on it, I mean, obviously, you had worked on other shows that were canceled early in your run. Like, did you have any idea this would pop off or like when was it? When did it hit for you that you were like, oh, this is pretty big?
Well, I still kept my restaurant job first season, so clearly I had no faith. But also we had a short first season. So I remember when we started season two, I decided to quit when season two started because we got a decent order. But also Steve Carell had finished and was about to premiere 40-Year-Old Virgin. So when 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, I was like, oh, we got this guy and we're with this guy and we're with this guy. I mean, it's like, oh my God, this show. I mean, I knew it was great. I just didn't know if it was NBC. I just didn't know if it was like, I didn't know if people would get it because I was a big fan of the British version, because I was skeptical about it being as good as the British. And luckily, I feel like it was even better because it had more heart. Steve's character had more heart than David Brent for sure, than Ricky Gervais's character. I also love the on again, like the initial on again, off again, like unrequited, will they or won't they love relationship of Jim and Pam was just so wonderful.
Do you find that like because of the TikTok world and everything and people are like rewatching every single day and posting about it every day, like do you feel like it's just as relevant as it was when you guys were shooting it?
Absolutely. And in many ways more, because I think it's more of a culture. People are like, I leave it on all day. I fall asleep to you every night.
It's so true. It's people's comfort shows. We put on The Office. I feel like when we clean on Sundays, it's always because I love watching TV when it like airs on TV. Do you know what I mean? And they always play marathons. I don't know what on Comedy Central, maybe.
I know there's at least 6 episodes a day on Comedy Central. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'd say if you're in the hospital and you don't have access to the remote, you've probably watched The Office.
It's so true. Although it is funny, I watched Sex and the City not on TV recently, and I was like, oh, I forgot they like get naked and curse.
I know I was a total Sex and the City cable watcher as well, and it's boy they chopped up. I still loved it, but boy, when you watch it unchopped, you're like, oh my god.
And there were some episodes I'm like, I don't think they ever aired this episode on E. There was too much to like cut out or whatever.
That's absolutely true. That's so funny. Actually, because Sex and the City was definitely one of my comfort shows. I was very single when I lived in New York and very heartbroken, and that show gave me some hope.
That was your Carrie Bradshaw era.
I don't know who I was, but yeah, a little bit of each at certain times and none of them most of the time.
So I got to know, how did you get involved with Plan B with our little film here?
I believe it was an offer. I got a nice letter from Brandon, and you know, I had worked with Jamie Lee. I used to host a female stand up show on TV Guide Network when they actually had their own programming, which was very brief. This was back the last 2 years of The Office. It was called Stand Up in Stilettos, and I believe that it was Jamie Lee's first time on television. So I was just a host, but I was proud of that. But we had like I think yeah, Michelle Buteau was one of her first shows, but we had like Mary Lynn Weishkub, Maria Bamford, Carol Leifer. We had like some seasoned pros, Retta from Parks and Rec. It was kind of there was a large span, but I'm proud of it, even though when it aired, the commercials for pancreatic cancer hospitals and the tortilla pan were much louder than the show itself. Crazy.
Wow, that's pretty wild. So, Brandon, you said that, and you told me that Kate was your first choice. You wanted to work with a Philly native.
That's totally true. So Kate mentioned that I wrote a letter. I think we just had our producer send an offer through Kate's agent, but I definitely put like a little director's note in there. Kate's someone that obviously I was a fan of from The Office and so many other projects, and knowing that Kate was from Philly and we were filming right outside of Philadelphia, just someone that I thought was super funny and would have been great in the role. So yeah, that's how it happened. And then luckily Kate said yes and did an awesome job.
Thank you, Brand. Well, I have to say, like, I love that you went to St. Joe's. I love your story, and you're a local guy, and you're still a local guy. And I feel like there's something to be said about that. I feel like people kind of get up and move, and they don't necessarily have to. And I have to say, I fell in love with the Mount Holly, Cherry Hill area again, Bordentown. Like I was like, I had not been to some of those places in years. And I was like, these places are awesome. Like really, really, really. I need to frequent more when I get home. So
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. I want to keep living in the South Jersey area. And I definitely appreciate the St. Joe's shout out because most people working in the film industry have never heard of St. Joe's.
well, then they don't watch basketball.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people never have. But yeah, I got to see some good basketball teams in my 4 years there.
Yeah, and I grew up not too far from City Line Avenue. So we used to call it City Line. Now it's called City Avenue. But I'm old.
It's not called City Line Avenue anymore.
None of the signs say City Line. It's all says City Avenue.
My grandma lived on City Line Avenue. I grew up in Marion. I was like right by there.
So funny. But also, I don't know if we ever talked about this. The other crazy, wonderful thing that I did not know when I had signed up to do the film, I didn't know that Tom Berenger was going to be in the movie. And Tom Berenger and I had worked together. And I have to remind Tom Berenger this every time I see him because he wouldn't remember me. When I was a senior in high school in 1982, I was an extra, a featured extra in the movie Eddie and the Cruisers that they shot at Haverford College. And I have to find the clip. I can send it to you. It's like you can see me in when they're singing On the Dark Side. There's like a little cutaway. I am clapping, acting my ass off, wearing like a red sweater, like twin set with pearls, and like my hair's in a ponytail. And I reminded Tom Berenger that I was, that I was there that day for a few days. I actually worked on the film for a couple, like maybe for like 10 days or something. And I actually told the extras when we started that scene, the big scene with the baby shower. I said to those extras, "This could be you with Tom Berenger right now. This could be you in 40 short years, 1982 to 2022. So I'm going to say, hang in there. But like, really, what are the chances?
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Tom was very kind and patient with me. I'm sure he was like, security.
I love that. That's so fun.
I think you mentioned that, Kate, to me when we were filming, which is super fun because I was excited to work with Tom as well. I never was an extra in one of his movies, though.
And I'd actually met Tom at a Comic-Con, like some fan expo event, and that's when I first bothered him. So I was glad that I was actually, on the call sheet and not just like, catering or taking out the trash at the event. That was nice.
That's so funny. Wait, I also have to ask you, I forgot before, but you were on one of my all-time favorite shows. It's actually not The Office right now. I'm talking about The Masked Singer. I need to know what that was. That was my pandemic show.
Okay, I just happen to have this right by me. This is me as the starfish. Can you see?
Yes, the starfish.
That was a very odd and wonderful experience. You don't need to do drugs if you do The Masked Singer. It's a costume that you can barely see out of, and I could barely walk in it. It was almost like I was tied to the knees, and my arms couldn't go up very much because I was a starfish. But it was all filled with foam, so I had to take like very intentional baby steps. But I had a great time. It was really fun. I thought I was only going to do one episode, and I ended up being on 3. I mean, it was great. But it was fun. I do sing, but I feel like I was told on The Office, if Meredith sings, she doesn't really sing. So don't sing. And I get it. It's a documentary, And Andy Bernard already sang. It's like, everybody can't sing. I get it. When you work in a paper company, not everybody sings. Get real.
But then you got to sing. You got to sing on The Masked Singer. I was telling Brandon before, I'm like, so many people grow up, like you were saying, you sang as a featured extra in that movie and you tour with Jane Lynch, you guys, and you sing and you've sang your whole life. That's such a show for people who we like when their fans don't know they're such a good singer and they're like, wait, what? You're on The Masked Singer.
Right. Oh my gosh. And I didn't get to pick my songs, but I still had a great time. I thought the choices were great.
Did you have to keep a secret from like all of your friends and family?
Yes. And my boyfriend, he came to visit a few times. So he had worked with the crew. He's at NBC. He's a TV photographer. He was working mostly for NBC for 37 years, but now he works for everybody. And so he knew most of the crew, and it was a lot of the Dancing with the Stars crew, which I had done before. So he had to wear the "Don't Talk to Me" with the visor and the gloves every time he was on set. They were afraid people would know if they saw him that it was me.
Do you guys get to keep that? Because I feel like that would be fun to wear to like Whole Foods.
Hilarious. I actually have it. I have it in a duffel bag that they gave me, and I do have a "Don't Talk to Me" T-shirt as well, which is a little less intense.
Yeah, I hope paparazzi catches you in that and they're like, oh no, Kate Flannery from The Office doesn't want to talk to anyone. Look at her shirt.
Oh my God. I think they know enough that it's associated with the show, though. I hope. You can't give me that it was so hard not to talk to people. That was the hardest thing because they have a simulator on your voice when you speak, but not when you sing. You're sort of hidden away in these dressing rooms and they keep everybody very separate. There's a lot of traffic issues and you have to be super careful. And Kevin Hart was on my season and Vanessa Hudgens. And I know I've met Vanessa a couple times and I was so bummed that we actually never got to like even talk about the show. So I need to stalk her and make that happen.
No one knew who was on the show. You guys are just like fully covered the whole time.
Jennifer Lewis was on my season as well. And I love her. And, from Blackish, she's such an amazing talent. She used to be like, she used to sing with Bette Midler. She's amazing. She's amazing.
That's really cool. Are you touring anytime soon with your holiday show?
I'm touring with Jane Lynch for 3 weeks from November 28th to December 17th. And we're not playing Philly, but we're playing South Jersey. I think it's Millville, New Jersey. It's not too far from the bridge.
Are you doing Joe's Pub?
Not this time. We're going to be mostly in Chicago. We're doing like 6 shows in Chicago at Steppenwolf this time. Last year it was 6 shows at Joe's Pub. But we're playing we're playing like Carmel, Indiana, and like a bunch of little cities. I think we're in Bethesda, Maryland as well. And we end in Santa Barbara. Jane and I played Atlantic City. Oh my God, it was probably like 7 years ago. And that was really fun. And I worked on the boardwalk in Ocean City and I sort of felt like, hey, I'm back.
Just like that Tom Berenger moment when you're like, we're in a scene together and we're both characters.
I know, right? I have such full circle, wonderful moments on that. I very much appreciate those. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that. I had one more question about Plan B because I was telling Brandon before, I'm very afraid of throw up on screen. Have you ever worked in that capacity before?
You know what? I did. It got cut. I think it might be on the extended fan version of The Office. During the Booze Cruise episode, they had 2 kinds of throw up that we all had to try. They filmed everyone throwing up at some point. So you can either have vegetable soup or cream of mushroom.
You get offered a menu.
Yeah. And I thought it was really brilliant that they picked those two because sometimes it's different for every person, right?
For sure. I told Brandon I couldn't watch. This is not really a spoiler, but it's a spoiler. But you guys should have seen that. It's early in the movie that Jamie throws up on you, and that's traumatizing. I don't know if I could do that. I was like, wow, she's a brilliant actress that she can sit there and do that.
Totally. And that we could go on and yeah, we didn't have to get her, a cold compress or something.
How many takes did you guys do that in?
Yeah, I'll chime in there. In the script, it was actually a little bit more graphic. Like it really was supposed to be like multiple throw ups all over Kate. And then I remember Kate was totally game for it. And it was kind of the day of filming. And I just kind of realized logistically that it was going to take probably like an hour to get Kate cleaned up in between each take. And we really just couldn't do that because we would have not been able to finish the day. So I was like, all right, it's just going to go all over the desk and like get on some of these papers and stuff like that. And then we were able to do, we did quite a few takes.
Sure, it's great to get thrown up on. Don't get me wrong. And maybe it'll happen again in my career. But can't say I wasn't a little relieved, a little bit, just a little bit. But I know you got to get your day. I mean, that's the thing about indie films. Like everybody's got to be on it, and you cannot be a diva, and you cannot make things more complicated. If it's more complicated, it's like you have to come up with the quickest solutions. It is like a major problem solving puzzle for everybody. And if you can't do that, I feel like you're not allowed. It just doesn't. I always say you can't do an indie film unless everybody's willing to take out the trash. You have to be willing to do everything and not freak out. It's like just keep it moving.
I love that. Such a good quote. And we've talked about that a lot on this podcast too, where you kind of just you show up and you're at camp for the day and you do your job and you go home at night. Like it's not
but certain stuff that you don't eat, you bring that. You take care of yourself. You don't you always have a backup for something because you don't know. I mean, and also whatever. I mean, sometimes you're in places that are remote, they don't have a runner. They usually don't have a runner. They usually don't have anybody to run and get other stuff. So yeah, I just think whatever your special needs are, like leave them at home. Don't say yes.
Well, you said yes to this and we're grateful for it. I know Brandon is. I'm just a small part of it too. And I was so excited because you walked into the makeup room when I was there because you were like shooting the second half of the day and I was there. And I was like, I'm in this room with like major hilarious people, right? You and John and Jamie. So it was a really fun day for me. And I'm glad we got to do this and chat. So
was that a real estate office? What was the office?
It's so funny. The place we filmed in actually is like a very small film studio where they do commercials and things like that. And I was touring it to potentially shoot some scenes there. And it honestly was just like way too expensive and they would have been like building sets and things like that. But I was like, that office that we filmed in is the actual office those people work in. And I was like, is there any chance we could just like film in here and we don't actually have to build anything? And they're like, sure. And we filmed in the office of the film studio.
That's awesome. And then Bordentown is so close. So if you want to have a cute little experience meal, a true South Jersey small town, wonderful experience, it's right there.
Yeah, that was a great area. I was happy to find that place. I'm drawing a blank on the name, or I would totally give them a shout out.
I don't have my call sheet on me. Sorry, guys. But I do have a picture of me as a starfish, and I also have.
Tell me she has the starfish.
I have my Dundee in the office.
Oh yes.
If you do a talk show on TV, you probably don't bring your Dundee, but if you're doing a podcast, you can show people your Dundee.
Yeah, you can. Do you get announced like that when you do a show and they're like, and she's a Dundee winner? We've got Kate Flannery here.
Could have had it in the podcast intro.
Kate Flannery, you're so funny. I'm so grateful that you were able to do this with us. Thanks so much for hopping on.
I hope all good things are happening. I hope to see you in South Jersey or Philly or both.
Probably see you in LA or New York before there.
On the set of Plan B too, maybe?
Yes.
A couple people have brought it up. Maybe Plan C could be coming at some point.
And maybe we could get Timothy Hutton because I was an extra in the movie Taps. Thank you so much. And I want everybody to see this movie. It's fun and smart and it's fun storytelling. And I don't know. I just support your local indie film. It's worth it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. We'll talk to you soon.